Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from the Creative Penn, and this is Simon Cheshire, children's author of the Saxby Smart series and many other books. So welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have another Brit on the show, so everyone will be loving our accents.
Oh, of course, yes. No, nobody would want to be in Britain at the moment, though. It's covered in snow and it's freezing cold, and all the cliches are here.
Oh, that's great. So can you start by telling us a bit about you and about your books?
Well, let's see. Most of my books are aimed at roughly the 8 to 12 age group. They fall into two groups, really. One is, as you say, the Saxby Smart detective stories. There's, let me see, there's 8 books of stories, starting with Curse of the Ancient Mask. There's 8 books of stories, 3 stories in each volume. And just out recently, there's the Detective Handbook, which is a non-fiction, all about detectives, real and fictional, and how the police work, and famous crimes and all that kind of thing. So Saxby's spreading his wings now. He's starting to write non-fiction as well.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. So I wanted to ask you about, your writing. Writing for kids must be quite different. You said your kids do the artwork there. And you're obviously very funny in your books. Is it quite different to writing, serious academic stuff?
I think it depends what suits you, really. Kids' books are my natural habitat. Some writers can write really serious stuff about important issues and that kind of thing. I can't do that. I have to stick jokes in. It just goes to pieces if I try to write straight, serious stuff. So I really admire those kind of writers who can write, straight prose, because I just can't do it. That's why I write children's books, because I have the mind of a 10-year-old. People have been telling me that for years and years, and so I thought, I might as well turn it into a job.
No, and that's fantastic too. And I felt, for years I should be writing literature, and then I actually just wanted to write thrillers and genre fiction, which gets a bit of a slapping. But okay, so given you've written so many kids' books, maybe you could give us your top tips for writing for kids.
If I had to offer 3 bits of advice, I think the first thing I'd say is don't feel you have to keep up with everything that's around in children's publishing at the moment, because there is an awful lot of it. I know some writers do like to read an awful lot of contemporary children's fiction. I tend to do the opposite. I tend to run away from it, mostly because, as I say, there is a lot of it, and you'd spend an awful lot of time wading your way through it. But also, I think it's good to kind of distance yourself from it slightly. Do you know what I mean? Because one of the nice things about children's fiction today is that it does still value originality and a bit of eccentricity. Do you know what I mean? And it's sometimes you do kind of need to step back from what's on the market. I know there'll be publishers and agents saying, no, don't do that. No, that's wrong. But, that's how I approach it. I think secondly, one very important point is never dumb down. Never ever simplify anything just because you're writing for children. Obviously, sometimes you need to simplify language occasionally, but basically, I would say, obviously, keep your readers in mind, but never write in a way that means you're consciously writing for children, because kids are far more sophisticated than I think a lot of people give them credit for, and they can understand concepts and ideas and things. And I think that's what draws them into most books. It's the fact that they do have complex ideas and complex concepts behind them. So I would say never ever be tempted to simplify something just because you're writing for children. If you find yourself doing that, you're probably best off writing something else, because it would come naturally to you. And I think that would be, I think, top tip number 3. Write what suits you. Write because there's such variety in children's literature these days. There's the very serious stuff and there's the very silly stuff. And I'm at the silly end of the spectrum, and you've got much better writers than me at the serious end of the spectrum. So have a go, see what suits you, and stick with it, I think.
Mm. No, that's brilliant. And interested there, you were saying about getting ideas, well, finding ideas and being original and that type of thing. Where do you get your ideas from? What's your biggest source of inspiration?
I think, well, it's all kinds of things. I often get asked that question by kids when I go visiting schools, and I've never really got a terribly sensible answer. Sometimes I say, well, I buy them from a newsagent just down the road, and that sort of. But because ideas that can spark stories can be anything, things you see, things you read, things you overhear, all kinds of things. I mean, the Totally Unsuitable for Children, the original spark for that was the opening image in it, which is a large Victorian theatre, which is full of aliens. Instead of waving their hands about, they're all waving tentacles and pincers and things. And it was just out of that the whole story spiraled. I just thought that was a fun idea. Mm. So they come from anywhere. The names in those in that book came from the sort of the half words that my baby son was saying at the time, because he was, I think, 18 months old, something like that at the time. And the half words that he was trying to say became the names of the aliens. So they're all Co and Far, Ix, and that kind of thing.
That's great. Okay, so also interested in, we mentioned publishers briefly there, but what are children's publishers looking for? Should people, like you said, don't think about that, but should, is there something that they're looking for at the moment? Like, the paranormal romance in, adult fiction.
The paranormal romance, you kind of, a lot of people in my position, we walk into bookshops and kind of spit at the moment because the shelves are full of sort of languid vampires. Yeah. And it's a bit, I mean, the trouble is, again, there isn't a particularly fixed answer. I mean, all publishers have their own agenda. They all look after their own lists in particular ways, and and it very much depends on the editors who are there. Some will like particular types of fiction, others will like something completely different. It's really a question of matching up the kind of thing that you're best at writing with the kind of house style that particular publishers use. And sometimes that's not terribly easy. And as you say, when you've got like a trend for vampires and that sort of thing, the thing that always comes to mind is something my agent always says, is that new manuscripts have got to be different but the same. Yeah. Which is one of those ghastly little phrases that's that you wish wasn't true but is, because if you want to market a book effectively, I think to a publisher, I think it's got to be new, and it's got to be original, and it's got to say something different. But at the same time, what it's also got to do is immediately say to the whole book trade, this book goes on this part of the bookshelf. It will go next to this writer's books and that writer's books. If they can shelve it in a precise place, you're at a big advantage. Which is kind of, it sounds cynical, but it's true. You need to be different but the same.
So I wondered about your marketing as well, because clearly you talked there about physical bookstores, but with your self-published books, are you now looking more to the internet for marketing?
Yes, very much so. I find that's really, in this day and age, that's the difference that mainstream publishers make. It's in distribution and it's in PR. If I'd say for somebody that's getting on board with a publisher for the first time, the thing to ask them about is what are your distribution channels like, and what sort of PR can you give me? Because it's those things that the self-publisher not doesn't have, but has to put a lot more work into. Perhaps distribution not quite so much these days, because a lot of print-on-demand services, well, 2 or 3 of them anyway, are pretty much worldwide. So you can upload files and it will be bussed out to wherever. But yes, all that sort of thing is done on the internet. I mean, my self-published titles, because of the economics of it, I can't offer them on sale or return to shops. So obviously most shops won't just have them as stock. So, but they can get them for customers as orders. So they are a different kettle of fish to mainstream titles. Yeah.
And I wondered about marketing as well to children, because, for example, I know how to market online to, adult readers who are doing that. But, do you market to children, or do you market to parents and grandparents, I guess?
It's a bit of both, really. I think I aim it really towards kids, because obviously those are the ones that are going to be reading the books. They tend to be the ones that choose the books. I found I'd never heard of book trailers before a few months ago. I'd never come across them. This was a revelation. This is fantastic. This is just the sort of thing I want to do. So everything that's come out since, I've done some sort of trailer for, whether it's just me sitting reading a bit of the book, or just talking about it for a couple of minutes, or whatever, or something that's a bit more whizzy. But that sort of thing I find is really helpful, because that, when I go into schools and things, that's one of the things that they talk about. They say, I saw the video about this book, and it does have an effect, that kind of thing. I mean, Saxby Smart's got his own Facebook page, that sort of thing. But a lot of those kind of those sort of social platforms that you might build up something for an adult book on, they're not irrelevant for kids' books, but obviously. There's not that many kids on Facebook, but there's a lot of kids that will have a look at authors' websites. So I find I tend to concentrate more on my own site rather than a sort of social network.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, so where can people find you and your books online?
Well, everything's at www.simoncheshire, all one word, .co.uk. They can get signed copies there, direct from me, and there's all those videos I've been talking about and all that kind of thing. I'll have to put some new stuff up soon, because now this new book has arrived. I've got to make a video and do a page for it, and this, that and the other. So keep looking, there'll be new stuff there soon.
Well, thank you ever so much for your time, Simon. That was great.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello, Australia.